Thank you again for being at our forum. My name is Carlos Martinez. I'm the Executive Director of the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado. I want to thank you all for being here today at our Telling Our Stories forum. I hope you all enjoyed this morning's session. What did you think, Gloria?
I thought it was a really thought-provoking session, right, everyone? Yeah, can I get a round of applause? I think it was an excellent glimpse into the challenges and opportunities that we're facing in education right now and around workforce development. And you know what I thought was great too, even just hearing from Catherine from the Center for American Progress, is that we have actually made some progress, but there's still so much work that needs to be done. And I think that we've got amazing leaders and folks who are committed to doing the hard work in this community to really address some of the challenges that we're facing in our community. But I know that we can address those challenges and come up with solutions. So I thought it was a very engaging morning. Yeah.
You all enjoyed yourself this morning? Yes, great, wonderful. I've heard some great feedback. So that was just a morning session. So we have a great luncheon session for you today as well as some breakout sessions, and then also an incredible closing session. A lot of you got to meet Adrian Molina this morning. He's actually going to come back with a group of students that he's been working for the last year is going to do a wonderful performance for you all. So that's a special treat. I also just want to thank our morning speakers, presenters. Catherine Brown, I believe she's somewhere in here, as well as, thank you very, very, very much, Dr. Lopez. She's done a wonderful job in helping us put this whole program together. Janet has done a great job with our team of making sure that we put a program that is stimulating, thought-provoking, and informational for you all. So, Dr. Lopez, thank you very much. As well as our panelists. They did an incredible job. Bill, Susana, Judy, and also Lisa, thank you very much for your contributions this morning. I also just want to briefly thank our sponsors. You know, I had someone come up to me a few minutes ago and said, "This has been great." I said, "Well, thank you." I said, "You know, we've been working on it for quite a while now, but this doesn't happen without the support of," and I'm not going to say sponsors, I want to say partners, people who want to partner with us to be able to go ahead and inform you to help change the narrative for Latinos here in Colorado. And this year we had quite a few partners who said, "Carlos, I'm here to support the Latino Community Foundation. I'm here to support the Latino community. Let's move forward together." So I want to say thank you to our sponsors. And they include our premium sponsor, the Denver Art Museum, who again has hosted us and been very, very generous. So thank you very much, Denver Art Museum. Our gold sponsors, AT&T and Miller Coors, and we'll hear a little bit more about AT&T a little bit later. Thank you very much for our gold sponsors. Our silver sponsor, Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. They've done a wonderful job again of supporting our forum. Thank you very much. And just lastly, our bronze sponsors. And they were Colorado Trust, Education Reform Now, Latinas Represent, Quest Diagnostics, Ready Foods, the Abarca family, Wells Fargo, and Xcel Energy. Thank you very much for your support.
Thanks, Carlos. You know, I'd really like to thank the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado's board, advisors, and staff for the work that you do day in and day out on behalf of the foundation to strengthen our community. Like I said earlier, it really takes a village, right? And so I'd like to actually address all of our board members and say thank you. Ron Montoya, who's our chair of the board, Adriana Abarca, Radine Acevedo, Luis Colon, Gay Cook, Mitchell Gonzalez, Deborah Oterga, Gary Poling, and our wonderful council of advisors, Sue DeMore and Gloria Rubio Cortez. I'd also like to give a special thanks to our advisors from the Rose Community Foundation who've been an invaluable resource to LCFC. The amazing Sheila Bogdanowicz, President and CEO. Yes. Therese Ellery, Senior Program Officer of Aging. Elsa Holguin, Senior Program Officer at Rose. Child and Family Development, Gay Leonard, Director of Philanthropic Services. And Janet Lopez, Senior Program Officer of Education at Rose. And I think it's really important to also thank the LCFC staff for the important work that they do every day and spearhead every day for our community. So I'd like to thank Rachel Griego, Program Director, Priscilla Montoya Viteo, who manages evaluation, Gina Del Castillo, Anna Jo Haynes, Cece Ortiz, Lori Ramos Lemasters, and the one and only Tony Tapia.
So we're going to give you about a 10-minute break so you can go ahead and eat and continue talking. But before we do that, there's like a little piggy bank on your table. Mine hasn't graduated yet, so it doesn't have the cap yet. But it's on its way. This is part of an effort that we launched earlier this year. One of the roles of the Latino Community Foundation is to stir philanthropy in the Latino community. So we're doing it at the grassroots levels, at various levels, and trying to stir that. So earlier this year, we came up with this concept of being able to distribute 5,000 of these piggy banks over the next 3 years and have families introduce the concept of giving, okay, where families would then save up, if they can, about $50, and every December give that money to an organization in the community. Not back to us, but in the community. So this is our first year of launching this initiative. I think we only have the last piggy banks that are in the back right now, so we would have given out about 1,500 of them already this year. So on your way out, make sure to pick up some piggy banks and be able to go ahead and share with your family, with your coworkers, with your friends, the concept of philanthropy. Our goal is that if in 5 years we can distribute 5,000, generating $50 apiece, that's $250,000 that's going back into our community. So make sure to pick up your little piggy bank. We'll be back in about 5-10 minutes. Let you eat right now in peace, and we'll come back to continue the program. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed your lunch. So this year, we're pleased to have AT&T as a gold sponsor of the forum and in supporting our important work in education. Let me just give you a little background about AT&T. So the AT&T Foundation's mission of supporting nonprofit organizations and programs that foster inclusion and create opportunities for diverse populations, as well as their commitment to enriching and strengthening communities, closely aligns with that of the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado. And that's why we're so honored to be partnering with them this year. AT&T is committed to supporting programs that address quality of life issues, with an emphasis on improving education, and that is why they are partnering with us today. They value and know how important it is for community to have access to high-quality education, and they are committed to Latino and underserved communities. So here to welcome you this afternoon from AT&T, a Colorado Pueblo native, UNC graduate, lifelong Colorado resident, and a dear friend and colleague, Roberta Robinette, Colorado President of AT&T. Yes. That's right. But before she welcomes you, we'd like to show you a very brief video.
The connections we make us stronger. When a girl connects with a science mentor, her confidence grows. When schools connect with technology, a fifth grader's world opens up. And when a worker connects to online degrees, his opportunities multiply. The AT&T Aspire initiative, helping students and communities across America.
Thank you. As Gloria said, my name is Roberta Robinette, and I'm the state president for AT&T here in Colorado. And I'd like to thank the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado for allowing us to be partners with their event this afternoon. With over 4,000 employees across the state, we look forward to helping make our communities stronger by supporting community programs across the state where we live, work, and play. We applaud the work of the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado and its efforts taking the lead in evaluating the infrastructure of the education system that is so critically important for jobs, economic prosperity, and future voter engagement. At AT&T, we share those same goals, and through our AT&T Aspire program, which you just saw a brief video on, Connecting Students to Success, we are able to bring together AT&T employees, nonprofits, community members to help equip students with the skills they need to lead the digital global economy. We believe that every student deserves an opportunity to reach his or her full potential. By removing barriers, sparking innovative solutions, and making connections, we can help every student achieve a bright, successful future. And that is why AT&T is investing in innovative education organizations, tools, and solutions in organizations such as the LCFC in trying to reach those goals. Today's theme, Telling Our Story, is important in evaluating how we help create success in education and in our global economy. That's why I'd like to add our connection to that story. AT&T welcomes new hires to our company every year, and it is critical that each one is able to hit the ground running from day one with the skills necessary for success. That includes hard skills like science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Almost 3/4 of our recent new hires begin their careers with us in the STEM fields, as well as possessing leadership skills like teamwork and collaboration. Business leaders in Colorado and across the country are eager to find qualified employees with the skills, training, and education that they need to succeed in today's and tomorrow's workforce. Education has been a priority for AT&T for more than a century now, and we believe that when we invest in our education, we are making our commitments stronger, safer, and more economically viable. Investing in a well-educated workforce may be the single most important thing that we can do to support a strong global economy. Since its launch in 2008, our Aspire program has been a force for change in the corporate philanthropic industry, and AT&T is proud of the program's accomplishments. We've impacted more than 1 million students in all 50 states and built efficacy for over 1,000 high-performing organizations. As we continue on this journey, we aspire to continue to remove barriers to academic success and career growth, and to help all students make their biggest dreams become a reality, regardless of age, gender, income, or zip code. And to me, the most important part of this day is what each of us take back from today's sessions and how we will help impact our students for tomorrow. We look forward to working with each one of you to continue to invest in our students at home, in the classroom, and at work to prepare them for success for tomorrow. And before I leave and continue on with today's events, I do want to bring to everybody's attention that our latest member of the AT&T family, DirecTV, is going to be hosting, in collaboration with Teach for America, an event on Saturday, October 10th, from 3 to 5 p.m. at North High School, MathX. And this is going to be free and open to the public, and it's an event that is intended for educators, community members, nonprofits, and high school students, as well as anybody else that has an interest in math, to come and participate in looking for ways to inspire kids to get excited about math. And so if you'd like to get more information and register for this event, you can go to teachforamerica.org. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today's events.
Good afternoon. My name is Ron Montoya, and I'm chair of the Latino Community Foundation, and I welcome you here today. I'm pleased to share this day with you and appreciative of the learning that has and will take place throughout this day. In January of last year, the board of the foundation set out a new vision. One, where the foundation would elevate its work in the community. Our vision called for convening the community and addressing critical issues where we could shape the narrative of our community. Last year, we held our first Telling Our Story forum that focused on how to improve the life of Latino older adults and their caregivers. The forum equipped people with information to go back to their communities and reframe the narrative for Latino elders in a way that expanded access to services. It informed us of how best to move forward in our work with Latino elders. Today, our second Telling Our Story forum, the Emerging Majority Education, Economic Power, and Political Presence, speaks to the growth of the Latino community and how together we must prepare our students with the educational opportunities that will land them the jobs and the careers that will lead them and their families to economic prosperity. Thank you for your commitment in shaping our future leaders. For the past 8 years, we could not come as far as we have without the support of the Rose Community Foundation. Since the beginning, they have been committed to see that the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado flourishes and are making a difference in many of the Latino communities throughout Colorado. And here today is a very good friend of ours, and he's going to introduce our keynote speaker, and he is Jerry Glick, the chairman of the Rose Community Foundation Board of Trustees. Jerry?
Well, good afternoon. I want to add my welcome to today's event. This is quite a turnout. In 2007, the Rose Community Foundation helped launch the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado to be a resource in the community and a catalyst for positive change. Rose has been committed to LCFC since the beginning through grants, administrative support, and being a strategic advisor. Over the past 8 years, as Ron said, we've provided $1.2 million in operational, grant-making, and program support. We're proud to see the evolution of the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado and how it's strengthening the Latino communities throughout our state. Your foundation is developing leaders, expanding opportunities for people of all ages, and collaborating with many institutions to have collective and wide-ranging impact. Some months ago, I attended an event that you had at the Governor's Mansion, and I was impressed then, as I am today, with your membership and the breadth of support that you've achieved. I now have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker today, Guy Garcia. Mr. Garcia began his career as a staff writer for Time magazine, covering business, culture, and international news, among other areas. He's contributed to the New York Times, the LA Times, and many other publications, and he's been featured in Fortune, Vanity Fair, People in Espanol, the Times of London, ABC, Univision, NPR, and many other outlets. It's quite a group. Guy has written several fiction novels. His book, The New Mainstream, How the Multicultural Consumer is Transforming American Business, is the business case for diversity. The New Mainstream drew national attention to emerging demographic, economic, and marketing trends. Soundview Executive Book Summaries awarded Garcia the Best of 2004 Business Book Award. Mr. Garcia then became the founding editor of AOL Digital City, went on to become the Director of Creative and Editorial Development for AOL Interactive Properties. He later became the Vice President of Content and Programming for AOL Latin America, and he launched AOL Latino, overseeing the development of AOL International, managing content and programming for AOL initiatives in Latin America, Brazil, Spain, and other countries. Later, Guy became a consultant to various Fortune 500 companies on multiculturalism, and he was a trend tracker for PBS. In 2012, Mr. Garcia became a partner and president of New Mainstream Initiatives at Ethnifacts, a research and insights consultancy. He's just finishing a study for Nielsen on Hispanics, and today he'll give us a sneak preview of highlights from that study. Here to talk about the emerging majority, please help me welcome Guy Garcia.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Jerry, and Ron, and Carlos, and everybody at the foundation. I noticed in your program something jumped out at me. If you heard that way overly long introduction about me, there is a thread through it, which is in my journalism, in the research I've done, in the businesses I've become a part of up until this minute, and even the work we're doing with Nielsen, that I will preview a couple of fresh things. It's about telling stories. So I'm a storyteller in every way, and I think most of you probably understand, clearly you understand that telling stories are important, but I think what not everybody necessarily automatically gets is that telling the stories that numbers tell is very important, and it actually is critical to how people interpret those numbers. So I say, and I'm very proud to be a partner in a minority-owned research and insights company that works with Fortune 500s, because I do think Hispanics and all people of color, if you own the numbers, you own the narrative, and if you own the narrative, you own your destiny. And this is really new. This has never happened before. So that's something to celebrate, but let's, I'm gonna try to get a lot of facts in, and hopefully it'll make sense. So you heard about the new mainstream. The new mainstream was indeed about this idea. As I traveled the world for AOL and other reasons, I noticed that there was a huge interest in what Chinese or Asians in the US were doing, what Hispanics, if I was in Argentina, they wanted to know about what we were doing with Hispanics in the US. I'd written about Latino culture for Time magazine, the Times, a lot of people, but that was the first time I got wind of the fact. I was like, why are they so interested? They're so far away, why would they care? And I realized that it didn't take too long to figure out that the earning power of Hispanics and other groups was starting to approach the GDP of entire countries and the rest of the world, so that's what they were interested about, and that led to, once I investigated how that was affecting businesses, it led to the new mainstream. When I first started talking about the new mainstream, a couple of things happened. People would either raise their hand and very politely say, is this your first science fiction book? Because it seemed like science fiction back then, not very long ago, just 10 years or so ago. The other thing people do, I remember I was giving a talk in, I think it was Idaho, and a sweet little lady in a flower dress raised her hand. She said, Mr. Garcia, how do we stop this? So there was, clearly, as I told her then, there was no way to stop it, and it's even less possible now. But let me jump ahead, because this is one of our most recent reports. It came out in March, called The Multicultural Edge, and the new mainstream is included in that report because it's never been more relevant or true than ever, and now we have the numbers to back it up. So it can't be mistaken as science fiction. The kinds of numbers I'm talking about is the explosion of multiculturals overall in numbers by year, by month, by day, and minute. And then, of course, the size of Hispanics are leading in every possible measure, right? In buying power, in growth of population, in relative growth of population. But again, mainly and most importantly, they're driving the future growth to an enormous degree that will approach almost 100% in just a little while. And the other thing is that, you keep hearing about this minority majority on the horizon. Some people say it's coming 2043 or 2050, or there are a couple other estimates. I worked very closely with the the last U.S. Census Bureau chief director, and we had a lot of fun talking about these numbers, and some of the highlights I'll take out and share with you. But I often describe the U.S. Census as retarded, and it usually gets gas in the audience. But I mean retarded as in lagging, as in behind, as in not caught up to the reality of what's happening in this country. And the census director absolutely agreed with me, and he said, yeah, we got to fix that. So I'll give you an example of what that means. When we talk about non-Hispanic whites eventually reaching zero growth of the rate of growth, we've already had the tipping point of non-white births eclipsing, but that percentage includes white immigrants, who most of which are still speaking a foreign language. And there's more to come. So, one of the things we've been doing at Ethnofax is we've been digging into the census numbers, what's behind the assumptions of the census number, what are the hidden revelations there that, guess what, other people just don't seem to be as interested as we are. But, we're there to do it. So here we are by generation. Quilt of diversity, obviously growing, spreading from just the coast. This thing had a mind of its own. And here's one of the most important ideas in the new mainstream that's never been more important, and I'll explain how it's even advanced beyond that. The linear conception of acculturation, this includes everything. It's sort of, it's the accepted wisdom of how immigrants come to this country. They're barefoot, they're speaking foreign languages, and over a few generations, they become fully acculturated, speak perfect language, watch PBS every night. That's not what really ever happened. What was happening was the mainstream that they were acculturating into also changed. So the way I like to say it is the melting pot also melts. So if you think of it that way, it's much more accurate to what's happening. That's why what could be more all-American than hot dogs? Well, that's German and Polish food, right? Or pizza. And that's Italian food, and now nachos, which is pretty popular at the Super Bowl, and lots of other places. So, and sushi's right behind it, and I have an example of an interesting way that food kind of has gone around and gets digested through cultures across time. The other thing that's really important that's happened, aside from the rise in numbers, the rise in buying power, is technology. So, friends from AT&T know about this. But it's not just usage, it's how they're using it, and how they're using it to reformulate their identities, which has huge impact on what they do. So here's a little preview of a report we're doing for Nielsen that will come out next month on 50-plus Hispanics, boomers. And the fascinating thing we found out is that because of the growing size of the boomer population, which originally we do a lot of work with NBC Universal and other media companies, so they're very interested in that 18 to 49 demographic. That is the holy grail for advertisers. But what's happening is the boomer population, the 50-plus overall, is upending that. So instead of the traditional, usually people after 50, they stop buying things, they stop being a force in culture, none of that is happening. In fact, quite the opposite. And because of the growth in intergenerational households led by Hispanics, but an overall growth in intergenerational households across the board, that effect is actually amplified. So now it's affecting cross generations. I'll show you an example of what that means. But the implications, again, because I saw you guys are interested in voting, is that the Hispanics, of course, 50 plus, are the fastest growing group of that demographic, and they are, like other boomers, breaking all the rules of what it is to be older, including still leading the households, supporting multi-generational households inside the household, and sustaining culture in ways we've never seen before, because they also are big adopters of media, just like their kids are, just like their grandchildren are, and often they're under the same roof. And more often than not, one or two of those people under that roof are boyfriends, husbands, daughters, cousins, non-Hispanic whites, who are part of what we call the culture edge. So that kind of lays up kind of where I'm going to be going with things. Here's another one. This came out last week. This is fascinating. When I talk about looking over the horizon. I can't wait to talk about this more because it's so disruptive. The percentage of blacks who are immigrants in this country right now is about 1 out of 11. In about 30 years, it'll be 1 out of 6, which is roughly the percentage of immigrants to the Hispanic population right now. So what this means is African American identity and the influx of black people from mostly the Caribbean, followed closely by Africa, has a huge effect. It's already having a huge effect on the black population. It's hard to say African American when you're talking about things like this because that's not really capturing, again, what's happening and what's going to continue to happen. And this is another thing that's not going to change. So I'm fascinated to think and find out more about what this means in the future when Hispanics and African American, black people in this country will have more or less the same ratio of immigrants in their populations. And then this is at a time where right now, today, we're already just shy of historic rates of foreign-born population in this country. It's about 14%. It's been that way for a while. I don't know why Pew thought that was news, but anyway. So let's keep going. Here's another point about the white population. The biggest growth, 9 million people by far in the 2010 census, were people of mixed race, people who checked multiple boxes, right? So we're just at the very beginning of understanding what that means. Obviously, as you look into younger parts of the population, into more diverse communities, cities like Denver and many other places, that becomes more and more important. But the growth and the actual number of white non-Hispanics who do not claim any ethnicity of any kind is actually shrinking. I mean, again, it's like 3% growth between 2002 and 2012, but that's distorted by white immigrants from Poland. And by the way, the census includes North Africans and people from India and the Mediterranean and the Middle East in those numbers. So I think there are a lot of people in America that if you lined everybody up, they wouldn't consider them part of the white population, but they're counted by the census as part of the white population. So this is another kind of hidden force at work. So if you subtract those people, the numbers go down even faster. So what this is all adding up to, well, for us, by the way, think of what I was talking about, cohabitation, the effects of proximity of people of different cultures, either by relation, by cohabitation, by proximity in highly diverse communities, plus the other things I talked about the diversity of white people and the growing numbers of people who identify as different races and ethnicities simultaneously overlapping, interacting. We did the math, and we figured out the actual minority-majority tipping point was not in 2036 or 2042 or 2050. It was last August, on August 22nd. So we got pretty excited about this. It was only, I don't know, about 6 months before when we did that calculation. And we're like, oh my God, we got to tell somebody, right? So what we did is we built a site. It's called AmericaReimagined.com. And there's a countdown clock, which obviously now has passed the tipping point. But we also have clocks for states and metro areas that are the next ones to tip. So it's kind of interesting to look at that. Yeah, please take a look, not now, because then you won't listen to me. And then we also teamed up with PBS and NPR. Maria Hinojosa has a show called America by the Numbers that, for the reasons I just said, we have a natural kinship about that, and we've done a lot of stuff together. So we actually got a Jumbotron to go up in Times Square, and we had a big fun, kind of made a party out of it. And it got plenty of attention. But again, the takeaway here is very serious, which is we have crossed that line already. It's not in the future. It's not coming. It's here. It already happened. So, people need to understand that not just for where they are and where they're going, and as an education to ourselves and the people that we're sharing cities, states, and this country with, and interacting increasingly around the world, as some of our friends and clients are doing increasingly as well. So this has global implications, local implications, and certainly financial and cultural implications across the board in ways that we're just starting to really see. So this is what we call the culture edge. When I talked about that, the IPI is the Interethnic Proximity Index, so that was the algorithm we used to calculate the sooner tipping point. And essentially now, the group of non-Hispanic white people who we know share the values, attitudes, and inclinations of people of color or different ethnicities, we call the culture edge. So that's kind of the evolution of the new mainstream moving forward. And the culture edge, so what does that mean exactly? It's a mindset, it's a demographic number. We're starting now, working with another client and partner of ours, Nielsen, to measure exactly what that means. I'll show you a little glimpse of the implications of that. But I'll give you one example that we love. In 1991, of couples that were half Hispanic and half non-Hispanic, only 36% identified their children as Hispanic. By 2011, it had reversed completely. So that's a pretty big jump in a relatively small time. So what does that say? It's like suddenly this melting pot perception, this desire or illusion of kind of melting into some kind of a general mainstream without any cultural identity, something's going on there, right? Same thing with the bullseye of the culture edge, right? So what you have is, we're seeing this in all groups, not just in Hispanic groups. And we're seeing it in white people. So I'll show you something else a second later that is really interesting. So what are the values of the culture edge? Inclusion, exploration, openness, curiosity, optimism, innovation, authenticity. These are important not just in understanding who might be living down the hall or down the street, but also your clients, your customers, your partners, your collaborators, planning cities, planning how you educate them, all of these things. So attitudes of the culture edge, these are some of the polls we did. Living in a country where cultural roots are respected is good. Exposure to people of other cultural backgrounds and so forth, awareness of your past. And again, every time we give talks like this, I give a talk like this, if I ask people to raise their hands, most of the people in the room know exactly what I'm talking about. They have a relative who's black or Asian or Hispanic, or more than one, or grandchildren. Already, more than half of all grandparents have grandchildren of different races and ethnicities. So there's another big tipping point that's happened quietly. It's a big deal. And this one, so some of this you would expect that people of ethnicities and races would be into their culture and it would be important to them. But the one up here, my culture, ethnic heritage is an important part of who I am. 60% of the non-Hispanic whites said yes, very important. So that's a pretty big deal to me. I was shocked by that. Not shocked because we don't see it in Culture Edge, but that it would show up so blatantly in a questionnaire of that kind. Little more on what I talked about, what we call ambiculturals. We don't call them biculturals because that implies a split. That implies half and half, but these people are not half and half. They're 100% American, and they're 100% Latino, and they're 100% a lot of other things too. And they see that as something, identity to millennials and ambiculturals of all ages is something that's fluid, it's contextual, the way they use language, and they own it and they project it through technology and media to a greater degree. So what we've seen, and we've run this through with some of our biggest clients, including, I'm pretty sure, AT&T. And what we've seen is instead of what everybody assumes, a linear trajectory from less acculturated to more acculturated, or rather the other way, from less to more acculturated, from more foreign to less foreign, to some kind of assimilated concept of totally American, what we're seeing is actually the aspirational drift towards the middle, towards this ambiculturalism, toward this ability to be many things at the same time, authentically, deeply, completely, and not feeling like they have to be one thing or the other, or increasingly even necessarily put into a box of being Hispanic or African American or Asian, because the world they live in is more complex, their attitude about it is more complex, and you can see here the ambiculturals, same thing. They're increasingly the largest and most active part of the Hispanic population, and one of the things we're looking at is how does that translate into other groups? Because we're seeing it. And then on the other side of this, of course, non-Hispanic whites, that's kind of the same ambiculturalism from the other side. So by being accepting, by having cultural curiosity, by embracing it to a high extent, you'll see some other examples of that. So again, drivers are learning, improvement, curiosity, appreciation of differences, driven inclusivity, and cultural identity being considerably important, continually important, and in some cases, increasingly important. And this is a big upset to the common wisdom of what happens, right? And so the other thing we've talked to clients about constantly, and they're starting to understand what we mean, is the days of having some Spanish language media to reach your audience and assume that all the other Hispanics who speak English are covered by your general market is just not going to do it for all the reasons I just showed you. So here's some of the voices of ambiculturals, and it kind of gives you a little glimpse into more of an anecdotal, qualitative snapshot of what I'm talking about and how they see themselves as distinct and proud of it, but also part of an increasingly multicultural majority. So just what we found out in the numbers is already the reality in their heads, so it's not surprising. They feel it already. I hate this slide, because what it really should just be is a picture about empire and all the things that follow from that. So one of the things that's happened in the last year, there was a revolution in the media business, in television in particular, because empire just blew the roof out of viewership and the composition of viewership and the assumptions of who watched what. When 60% of the audience of Empire was African American and black, and then the rest was white and everybody else. And I think it's the only show in history that those groups, all groups, grew over the course of the season. There was no drop-off of any group. So it wasn't a trend, it wasn't a fad, people weren't tuning in out of curiosity. I don't know the numbers from the new season that just opened, but I bet most people in this room saw it. And that's going to continue to happen in innumerable ways. So again, everybody's like, well, gee, what if that happened there? How do we measure the other places it's going to happen? How can we be predictive about it? I'll get to that later. Meanwhile, here's a really important implication of what I'm talking about. This is where the rubber hits the ground on this, is that by this approach, traditionally, you start out with a general market and you start drilling down into smaller and smaller subgroups until all of a sudden you find yourself with non-English speaking Cubans and your whole marketplace is 2 neighborhoods in Miami. Our approach is the opposite. So what we're saying is you start with culture and identity, and then you can expand it out by all the people that are included from other groups and ethnicities, including white people, which we know share those values. And it depends on the category, it depends on where you live, it depends on who you are, it depends on your age and income. But we know, and Empire is a very good example of that if you hit it right, your bullseye is going to be much, much larger, and that's very attractive. Another thing we did that no one else had found out before was that because of the relatively young age of people of color, their buying power over time is exponentially larger. So if you're a company, an advertiser, or a company that's trying to figure out how to spend their dollars on branding, it's like all of a sudden it's like, wow, there's a big disparity here. A lifelong relationship with a Hispanic consumer has more dollar value than somebody else. And that's just, again, not a value judgment, just a fact. This is one of my favorite examples because, hot peppers came from the Amazon, right? And then they were the Europeans took them back to Europe, and then they eventually made their way around the world. And Sriracha is from Thailand, and then came back here, and all right, let's run this thing.
Thanks to the true fans of the bell. And thanks to the Sriracha Maniacs. Without all of you, we never would have thought of this. The new Sriracha Quesarito. Layers of our insanely good Sriracha sauce in the Quesarito you love. Only at Taco Bell.
So that is so culture edge. They're taking, a condiment that was born in the Americas from Latins that went around the world, and it comes back from Thailand, and then they put it in a burrito. Amazing. So we're going to see a lot more of that. And I mentioned before, I'm going to try to go faster because I'm running out of time. But extremely high use of smartphones, of apps, all technology, social media. And the reason that matters is not just because they're buying things and using things, but they're acutely aware that this gives them more latitude, more power. You can broadcast any version of yourself you want. And they do it all the time. Everybody does it all the time. They do it more often than everybody else. They do it with more intensity and passion than everybody else. And they're using it in ways that are a little different because they're exploring all these additional dimensions of their identity, which again is where we're all going, whether we like it or not. Because even if you opt out and say, no, I'm not part of that at all, you still have to deal with it because it's everywhere. So, there's no way to escape it. You might be happier about it than other people, but it's here to stay. One last thing that's a really important trend, I'm not going to be able to go into it all, really is the rise of women overall in society, but especially women of color who increasingly are the head of the household, the major buyer, who are the major shoppers, and often also maybe the grandmothers in these multi-generational households who are not just supporting the family economically, not just sustaining culture and heritage, those values to their children, to their families, to their grandchildren, but also interacting with other people and relatives around the world, in Latin America and beyond. So that's a big trend. Here's another look at the future, right? Is like Jeb Bush accidentally identifying as Hispanic? I think not. Rachel Dolezal, people say, oh, she was a fraud and she did something wrong. I think she's completely sincere. You're going to see a lot more of that. It's creating, and there are more examples of this kind of thing, obviously. And then Miles Morales, who's the new Peter Parker for Marvel. What I love about that is, I don't know if they intended it, but Peter Parker always had difficulties in his private life, usually with his grandmother and his girlfriend, but living in the real world was always complex for him, and he was always trying to find out who he was. It was always an identity quest. But when he put on the Spider-Man costume, he was the everyman, he was everybody, and everybody could relate to him. So I think there's something very interesting going on there. We'll see how it plays out. I think that's good enough for now. Thank you very much.
Let's give Guy Garcia another round of applause. Wonderful. Really made me think a lot during your presentation, Guy. I was thinking about, in my immediate family, Irish, German, Latino, African American. I mean, we're adding to your demographic numbers here. So. Last year, we inaugurated the Soul Award, Soul of Leadership, that pays homage to a Latino leader or organization that has demonstrated courageous leadership, embodies high standards of integrity, and is deeply committed to the advancement of Latinos. Today, we are honored to present the 2015 Soul Award to the Salazar Family Foundation. The Salazar Family Foundation was founded in 1999 by Rob and Lola Salazar to encourage Denver area residents to achieve their educational dreams. The foundation does this by supporting organizations that are committed to improving the quality of education and students' access to it. It has contributed to the Denver Foundation, the Denver Public Schools Foundation, the Jefferson Foundation, the Latin American Educational Foundation, Escuela de Guadalupe, and other institutions that provide educational opportunities through scholarships, literacy programs, and classroom grants. You know, I'm so happy that they're going to receive this because we learned earlier today that by the year 2020, 74% of all jobs are going to require post-secondary education. This is dramatic because part of the statistics today said that Latinos are at 20%. So we've got a big job to do. And I will tell you that Rob and Lola and their daughter Angelique, who's with us today, are blessed individuals. And they have always shared their blessings. I'm so proud to know them, and I've admired them for all they do in the community. So we would like to present the Soul Award to Lola and Angelique Salazar. Come forward, come forward. Angelique, come up, come up, come up.
Thank you so much. On behalf of my family and my daughter, my son, my husband, and our foundation, I am honored to be here and so grateful to be the recipient of the Soul Award. Rob and I were both born and raised here in Denver. He was a North Sider, and I was a South Sider. We got married really young, right out of high school, and we worked really, really hard to put each other through college. And we raised a beautiful family. Time goes by so fast. I remember when they were little, my parents would say to me, enjoy every moment, because time flies. Back then, being 18 and 19, I really didn't pay attention too much. I was knee-high in diapers and had 2 babies a year apart. Flash forward 30 years. Now my daughter and my son have their families and their kids. Time does fly by. I should have paid more attention. I hope that they know how much I love them and appreciate them, and I hope I made a difference in their lives. Being a founder of the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado, I have got to know the board members, the staff, and I am so, so very proud of the impact they are making in Colorado. But what I hope that all of us now keep in mind every day, just like my parents said, time flies, make a difference every single day. So I hope when you wake up, you are making a difference, not only in your lives, but in the community and for so many around us. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. We appreciate this award so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, on with the program. Last year, the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado launched a pilot project called Hip to College to address the summer melt issue of Latino students. Summer melt refers to Students who graduate from high school are college intended, usually get accepted to college, but never make it to their first day of class in September. And in some communities here in Colorado, as high as 70% of Latinos melt during the summer and never make it to their first day of class in September. So we funded 5 organizations who are working with 1,000 students to be able to address this issue. We funded Mi Casa Resource Center, Girls Inc., Latin American Educational Foundation, Mapleton School District, and Adams 14 School District to be able to address this. So I'm going to show you a quick video of some of the students who talked about a little bit about going through this experience. On August 8th, the Latino Community Foundation, along with these 5 organizations, and Lead Denver, put together an event called Ready, Set, College for the students to get them ready for their first year of school. So we have a quick little video to show you about these students' experience and how they're getting ready for school. And then I'm also going to go ahead and call one of them up also to talk to you a little bit as well.
The program I have with Katie has helped me a lot. It's helped expand my knowledge. Coming from a first-generation home, because I will be the first one to attend college in my family, so there's not a lot of talk about college in itself. As you go to school, you get good grades, but nothing else. And Katie has really expanded my knowledge about college, what you need to do, what you need to get. You need to do this, you need to look into that, stuff like that.
Working with Miss Bailey has been amazing. She's my mom now, I guess you could call her. She's helped a lot because she's opened my eyes to all the reality I'll be facing, all the adversity, all the time management issues I'm gonna have. So having her as support through this transition has been amazing because now it's like you're on your own, but she's like, no, I'm here for you. So there's always that help right behind you whenever you need her.
Open doors for opportunities for scholarships, especially a lot of things that I was not aware of, a lot of documents that I needed to fill out and make sure that my financial aid statements were on track.
Oh, this was eye-opening. I knew I wanted to go to college, so at the start of my senior year this year, I said, okay, I applied, I got accepted, now what do I do? So I attended these workshops, and this program has networking and like opening my eyes to like student loans and how much I have to pay, and it's really helpful, like not knowing what to do and just like telling me, like guiding me.
The program really helps you like meet people, like all this networking and stuff. I've met a lot of representatives from City of Boulder, and it's really helped, and meeting other people that are going through the same thing as I am. I just met like a few students and I was like, hey, yeah, we're in this together.
One of them is letting my support system down, because like I said, I come from a family where people don't go to college, so there's a lot of expectations to me, and I don't want to let everyone I have at home down. My biggest worry on going to college is being away from home and having a culture shock. Just knowing that I will be away from home since we've always been close at home. It's kind of scary to know that.
I think my biggest worry is letting my family down too. My parents, like I said, they're from a small town in Mexico. They have no idea what college even means. And my dad always told me that college is the most important thing and that I need to get an education to do something that they never had the opportunity to do. So just letting my family down is what definitely worries me the most.
The biggest supporter will be my sister, because she graduated a year before me, and she just had her child. And she's telling me it's hard. Without education, you need education, get it. So she's been really supporting me to go to college, get your degree, because right now she's struggling financially in a way, but she's saying that if she would have had the education, that problem would have been present.
Definitely has to be my family, without a doubt. My brother, my sister, my mom, and my dad. Just because my older brother is about to graduate next year, so he's been through there. He knows what I'm going through, and my little sister, just my motivation throughout the whole thing, and I see my parents working hard on the daily, so I'm doing it for them. So my motivation and support 100%.
Pretty motivated and confident about what the future holds.
Ready, set,
So here to share a few words with you is Dalia Mari Nelarena about her experience in the Hip to College program.
Good afternoon. My name is Dalia Mari Nelarena, and I went through the Latino Community Foundation of Colorado's funded Hip to College program. I graduated from Global Leadership Academy in May, and I am now a student at Metropolitan State University. My parents came to this country because they wanted to offer me and my older sister and younger brother with opportunities. I am the first in my family to go to college, and my parents were always telling me that they wanted me to have an education. My older sister finished high school late with a baby on the way, which is another reason why it gave me more motivation to finish high school and be the first to go to college. When I was in middle school, I wanted to be a lawyer. In high school, I wanted to be a business owner, and today I'm not sure because I feel like I have a lot of opportunities to explore. In high school, I thought going to college was easy. All you had to do was send an application and you got to go. One day at school, I got a flyer to a workshop to learn more about college. I left overwhelmed with all the paperwork and everything you have to do. It wasn't easy as I thought. I am lucky for the Hip to College program in my school because they were able to have Miss Bailey help through everything. If it wasn't for her help I know that I would have not registered for college, and I don't know what I would be doing. On my first day of college, I was scared but excited to be there. The fear that I had to go to college has gone away, but now my fear is now not passing my classes or having a bad relationship with my professors or what they think of me. But it is the same fear that motivates me to be a good student and do well in college because I want to graduate and be someone. My parents, especially my dad, are very proud of me. They want to see me succeed and not have a hard life like they do. I want them to be proud of me. So my advice to high school students is keep thinking of college and don't let anyone say you can't. Don't stress about what other people say about you and don't goof off. And the last thing is achieve more and take advantage of all the opportunities and don't take anything for granted. I know some of you in this room support the HIP, the Hip to College program. On behalf of me and the hundreds of other students that went through the program, thank you for believing in us.
Thank you, Dalia. Wonderful, wonderful job. So we are entering into our second year, and we were having a conversation with our board about our second year and making sure that we had enough funding. As a foundation, the Latino Community Foundation does not have an endowment. We raise our money every year to be able to give it out. And we were, I was talking to Gloria, and I'm like, well, okay, Gloria, we're a little bit short of money this year for next year. We need about $10,000. And so two of our board members said, you know what, we'll put in $2,500 a piece to see if you want to do a match.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Adriana Barca of Ready Foods and Raydeen Acevedo for your generous donation of $2,500 apiece. So right now, right here, if we can raise $5,000, that will become $10,000 to help hundreds of Latino youth like Dalia. I mean, she has such an inspiring story, and there's so many other individuals that we can impact today.
And just, know that, we don't always like to ask for money, okay? But, the money that you contribute, know that 100% of it goes back out. We don't keep any of it. It goes back out to the community. And as we work with youth, and I have the privilege of meeting a lot of these youth, the ones that you saw in the video and so forth. And it's funny because I feel they're like my kids, because we're helping them through your support to achieve their dreams. So tonight, or today, we're asking you to help us achieve these kids' dreams. As Gloria said, we have 2 board members who put in $5,000 to see if we can go ahead and have that match today. You know, I know you came here probably not thinking of an ask, but we're taking advantage of this opportunity to see if we can count on your support to help people like Dalia and many others who want to be able to achieve their educational dream. Today we heard in the panelists a lot of the challenges that a lot of Latino youth go through. We want to be able to at least eliminate some of that. So, you know,
so good at the ask, Carlos.
So, if we have one person who will give $5,000, we can just end it right away. We have Lola Salazar is going to give $5,000 today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Also, there is envelopes in your folders if you want to contribute. We're not going to go through everything, but just thank you very much for your support. Oh, we have someone else over there. So you want 1,000? Okay, so Gary's putting up 1,000. He says, you know, I'll put up 1,000 for a match. Does anybody want to contribute to that $1,000 match? Oh my God, this is unexpected, okay? Wow, okay, so we have another 5,000 as a match. Okay, this wasn't part of my program, so. Okay, so Sue says she'll do 1,000 to help match that 5,000, so we're now down to 4,000. Is there anyone who else would like to contribute anything? How about? Thank you very much. Another 1,000. How about 500? Anybody like to do 500?
I'll do 500 for the volunteers.
Thank you. Thank you. How about 100? Anybody like to go ahead and contribute 100? So we have Gay Leonard in the back. We have another hand up here, Patricia Baca. I better put my glasses on. So we have Sherry Rubin also, Olga Garcia, Tony Tapia, Miriam. Oh, Angel, Sonia, Guy, Luis, Jim, Mike, Alexis, Oscar. So thank you very much. I think we're pretty close to that. So if someone hasn't come to you and you pledge, just do an envelope. And Susan, raise your hand high. Everybody look at Susan who just pledged. Susan will take that pledge from you. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you opening up your hearts and your pocketbooks to make a positive, meaningful difference in these students' lives. Thanks a lot. Okay.
So the fun doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't. Okay, so for those of you who are participating in the workshops, I need for you to stay in your seats here in this hall so that we can explain how the workshops are going to work. So first, I want to thank the Colorado Education Initiative for helping us with the breakout sessions today. They have mentored us on the use of design thinking and trained the facilitators who will be facilitating your sessions today. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce to you Tara John, Manager of Next Generation Learning with the Colorado Education Initiative, who will explain the process that we know that you'll enjoy. Thank you.
So while everybody is, while the people who are not staying are transitioning out, the people who are staying, thank you much. We'll have you pull out in your folders that you received this morning. There was an extra handout that was on top of the folder. It was very colorful and it said design thinking protocol. So if you want to pull that out, we're going to walk through that together. Looks like this. This is the front of it. Okay, so as was just mentioned, my name is Tara Jan. I work with the Colorado Education Initiative. If you're not familiar with our organization, we're an independent nonprofit that partners with the Colorado State Department of Education to bring education reform initiatives and help schools and districts across the state implement those. One of those being next generation learning. And that is really about how do we support student outcomes that are beyond and in addition to academic outcomes. And one of the key tools that we've been using with educators to support the growth mindset, both for themselves as learners, but also so they can create learning environments for students, is design thinking. So we wanted to give a very brief overview of what design thinking is while we're a big group. And then when you get to your individual breakout sessions, you're going to be guided through a 60-minute protocol with a facilitator that will go into more depth, and you'll actually get to practice the whole process of design thinking within that 60 minutes. So whoever is doing the slides. Okay, thanks. So this is what your handout looks like, and this is just like a simplified way of kind of saying what it is, why we use it, and how we're going to collaborate together. So on the top, you see the framework of what is design thinking. So you'll notice a few things about it. It's a multi-stage process. It's also a circular process. And the key part of this process is that design thinking is also called human-centered design or client or user-centered design. So at the center of this process, imagine a client or a group of students or a student or a community member. We're going to have the opportunity today to go to support, I think, 11 or 12 different real organizations in Denver metro area that are supported by the Latino Community Foundation. They'll be our clients. And so we're going to do this process for them. So one thing to remember in design thinking is you are solving a problem that's important to a particular client. You know, we're not just solving problems because we identify them. We're solving something based on the unique circumstances of that individual client. And the best way to do that is you start with this empathy building phase. That's the step one within the process. So building empathy with your user is about asking questions, deeply listening to what their concerns and their history are, why this challenge is a challenge in their life in the first place, in their organization's life in the first place. So you're going to have the opportunity to hear from the client where their challenge comes from, and then be able to ask questions from the client to get more information. So every participant who's on a design team will imagine themselves to be an action researcher, and so you're going to actually be able to dig deeper and figure out some circumstances that surround this challenge to better understand it. The next part of that is the define phase. And so this is where it's unbundle. So we've just heard a lot of information from our clients. We really want to start peeling back that onion and figuring out really what's at the root of this. What is after, there's a lot of logistics maybe on the top of the surface, but we want to get to the deeper, maybe the unknown or non-obvious challenge that's causing this, or the root cause that's causing these challenges. And then we go into this ideate and prototype. So in design thinking, there's a really important focus on action and actually doing something to support our clients. So we're going to help you get to this area of provocation where you're able to come up with some outside of the box thinking, get beyond that obvious solution so that you're able to help that organization maybe work together. So you're going to work together as teams to help that organization maybe come up with some solutions that would not have occurred to them in the past. And that's a key component of design thinking, is getting a lot of different brains around the table who are outside of the existing organization in the hopes that you can bring your experience and expertise to the problem-solving process to be able to come up with some innovative solutions. The prototyping part is you will actually be building a solution before you leave today that the clients will be able to take back to their organization and maybe implement on Monday. Maybe they implement all of it, maybe they implement part of it, but the goal is that all the clients will actually get to leave with your group ideas and actually make change in their organization. So we're not just talking the whole time, but you'll be actively involved the whole full breakout session and helping solve somebody else's challenge. And then the final stage is iterate. So the culture of prototyping around design thinking is that it's never final. The goal here is to solve a challenge for an organization and make sure that challenge is actually impacting make sure the solutions are actually impacting the challenge. So I'm sure that we've all in this room been involved in, some solution that we say, okay, let's get it out the door, we wait a year, see if it maybe works. We actually want to help these organizations get into that culture of prototyping where they're able to try a prototype, see if it works, and if it doesn't work, stop it quicker than if they don't need to wait a long time. So that's what we're hoping to do. And also, there's these things called levers. So maybe it's pieces of a solution that they try and test and plug and play to see what's most effective. So that's the full process, and it is an iterative because you keep the client involved in the whole process. So again, we're not just doing surveys and getting information, then going in isolation, solving the problem. We're really making a dialogue. We're having a dialogue with our users and with our clients so that we can test with them and build empathy throughout the whole process. Again, I kind of framed this around why we use it. And normally the way we solve problems is we have a question, we have a challenge, we have an opportunity we want to scale. And with our given knowledge and our given experience, we're able to get to an obvious solution. Sometimes that obvious solution works, great. Most of the time, it might not work perfectly. So what we want to do is use a process like this to get to this area of provocation, get to these wild and crazy ideas, forget the constraints that we currently live under, so that we can imagine the impossible, so that when we get to when we start reintroducing the constraints of budget, timeline, testing it with our users to see if it actually works, it backsteps a little bit to an innovative solution. And again, an innovative solution, even if it's somewhat close to the obvious solution, it's still further away. So we would do this process so that we could get to a more innovative solution. And then I'm not going to go into details around the ground rules, but your facilitators are going to do that in the individual rooms. But it's really important in design thinking to follow a set of ground rules to help us collaborate differently than we normally would work together. So your facilitators will go into more depth of each of these ground rules as you work through them as a team. But just so you know, they're going to be important tools for you to use throughout this next hour and a half. With that, we have 4 breakouts. We have one on summer melt, STEAM, education policy, and workforce readiness. So I think most of you have signed up already for, maybe when you registered, you signed up for one of those. I think that if you are still interested in that, make sure you check your schedule and find the correct room. Within your packets, you'll see, that was actually another piece that was added to the packets. It has a grid on the front with the breakout sessions. And so it has the breakout session and the associated rooms that you'll need to go into. 3 of the 4 rooms are downstairs on the lower level. 1 is upstairs. So the education policy is on the 4th floor upstairs. All the other ones are downstairs, and there's signs for each of the breakout rooms once you get downstairs. Finally, CEI will be in each of the rooms, but really, as was said earlier, the facilitators are partners of the Latino Community Foundation. We were able to train them, so it's all of their first time doing this protocol, and we're so grateful that they were able to come together and be this group. So we're all learning together today. That's a really important part of design thinking, is this beginner's mindset that we're not experts, we're all just learners together. So everyone will have their own group with an organizational representative for each design challenge. So with that, if you have any questions, you can come find me. Other than that, I think you can head to your rooms, and thank you so much for staying.